Tyler Brennan brought Chief Daniels to the exact coordinates where the cabin had stood, expecting vindication, but found only a pristine clearing and the officer's cold, unreadable smile. The silence of the Pennsylvania wilds pressed against Tyler's ears, heavier than the humid air of the unseasonably warm December afternoon. "I do not see a cabin, Tyler," Daniels said. His voice was flat, lacking even a hint of mockery, which made it infinitely worse. He adjusted his belt, the leather creaking in the stillness. "And I certainly do not see a wallet belonging to a man dead for 40 years. Tyler spun in a circle, his hiking boots scuffing the moss. His heart hammered a frantic rhythm against his ribs. It was impossible. Less than 2 hours ago he had stood right here. He had touched the rotting wood of the collapsed structure. He had smelled the mildew and the ancient, rusted metal. He had held the cracked leather wallet of David Torres, the hunter who vanished in 1983, and seen the faded driver's license inside. "It was here," Tyler insisted, his voice cracking. He pointed to a patch of ground where the hemlock needles looked too uniform, too deliberately raked. "Look at the ground, Chief. It's been swept. The structure was right here. There were food containers, sleeping bags. A whole life rotting away." Daniels did not look at the ground. He looked at Tyler. It was a look of pity mixed with a dangerous kind of patience, the way one looks at a dog that needs to be put down. "The woods play tricks, son. Shadows, light, isolation. You've been asking a lot of questions around town about sad stories. Maybe your mind just wanted to fill in the blanks." Tyler felt a surge of nausea. This was the moment the trap snapped shut. He had made a choice that morning. When he found the site, the logical, self-preserving part of his brain, the part that made him a good technical writer, had screamed at him to run, to drive straight to Philadelphia and call the FBI. But he had chosen to trust the system. He had chosen to believe that Emporium was a town of laws, not just trees and silence. He had driven to the station, breathless and shaking, and insisted Daniels come with him. He had handed Daniels the map. He had led the wolf to the den. "I took photos," Tyler said, reaching for the camera bag slung across his chest. His fingers fumbled with the zipper. "I have pictures of the wallet, of the ID." He yanked the DSLR camera out and hit the playback button. The screen flickered to life. "No card inserted," the digital readout said. Tyler froze. He popped the side slot. The SD card was gone. He looked up, horror dawning on him. He had left the camera in his car while he ran inside the police station to get Daniels. The cruiser had been unlocked. It would have taken seconds. Daniels stepped closer, invading Tyler's personal space. The scent of stale coffee and gun oil wafted off him. "You retired, Mr. Brennan. Living out here alone. It gets to people. We see it all the time. Paranoia. Hallucinations." "I know what I saw," Tyler whispered, though the certainty was crumbling under the weight of the chief's absolute denial. "I think you should go home," Daniels said softly. "Pack a bag. Maybe take a trip. The city air might clear your head." The threat hung in the air, suspended like dust in a sunbeam. It was not a suggestion. Daniels turned and began walking back toward the trail, his heavy boots crunching on the path. He did not look back to see if Tyler was following. He knew he would. There was nowhere else to go. Tyler stood alone in the empty clearing. The trees seemed to lean in, their branches weaving a cage against the gray sky. He realized then that the cleanup had not just removed a cabin. It had removed reality. And by bringing the chief here, Tyler had not reported a crime. He had announced himself as a loose end. Tyler drove his Honda back to town, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The dense forest that lined the winding road felt different now. Before, it had been scenery. Now it was a hiding place. Every shadow between the trees looked like a man standing watch. The sun was dipping below the ridge line, casting long, bruised shadows across the asphalt. He needed to get to his computer. He had backups. He had scanned the newspaper clippings about the 17 missing people. He had his notes, his timeline, the statistical impossibility report he had been drafting. The camera card was gone, and the physical site was scrubbed, but Data was harder to kill. He parked haphazardly in front of his rented house on Spruce Street. The house, a 2-story box of peeling white paint, looked undisturbed from the outside. The porch light flickered, a rhythmic dying pulse. Tyler unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air in the hallway was cold, colder than it should have been. He had left the thermostat at 70. "Hello?" he called out, the word dying in his throat. Silence. He moved to the living room where he had set up his remote office. The desk was overturned. Papers were scattered across the floor like dead leaves. Utility bills, takeout menus, junk mail. But the center of the chaos was the desk itself. His laptop was gone. Tyler scrambled to the floor, checking under the sofa, behind the overturned chair. Nothing. He ran to the bookshelf where he kept his external hard drive hidden behind a row of paperbacks. The books were on the floor, spines broken. The hard drive was missing. Panic, sharp and blinding, spiked in his chest. They had not just taken the electronics. They had taken his memory. He pulled his smartphone from his pocket to call. Who? The state police? The FBI? He dialed 911, his thumb hovering over the call button. But then he remembered the dispatch center. In a county this small, the 911 calls did not go to a faceless operator in a city. They went to the county dispatch, likely the woman who worked the front desk at the station. Daniels would know before the phone even rang. He needed to leave. Now, Tyler ran upstairs to his bedroom to pack a bag. He grabbed his duffel from the closet and threw it on the bed. He opened his dresser drawer to grab clothes, but stopped. The clothes were shredded. It was not a frantic tearing. It was methodical. His shirts, his jeans, his socks. Every single item had been sliced with a razor, rendered useless. It was a message, violent and intimate. You have nothing here. You are nothing here. He backed away from the dresser, his breath coming in shallow gasps. He turned to the nightstand to grab his wallet and car keys, which he de-tossed there when changing earlier. The keys were there. The wallet was there. But next to them sat a small, dirty object that made Tyler's blood turn to ice. It was a pine cone, a simple, closed pine cone. But tied around it was a piece of blue nylon cord. The same blue nylon cord he had seen on the sleeping bag in the cabin in the woods. The cabin that did not exist anymore. Someone had been in the woods while he was there. Someone had watched him find the evidence. And while he was driving Daniels to the site, that someone had come here, destroyed his life, and left this token. He was not just being watched. He was being herded. Tyler grabbed his keys and ran down the stairs, tripping over the last step and slamming his shoulder into the wall. He ignored the pain. He burst out the front door, ready to jump in his car and drive until the gas tank ran dry. But as he reached for the handle of his Honda, he saw it. All 4 tires were slashed. The car sat low and heavy on the pavement, a crippled beast. Tyler stood on the silent street. The sun was gone now. The streetlights buzzed overhead, illuminating the empty sidewalks. The diner down the block was dark. The post office was closed. In the distance, he saw a curtain twitch in the window of the neighbor's house. He was trapped. 400 square miles of wilderness, and he was stuck in the center of the spiderweb. Tyler retreated into the house, locking the door and sliding the heavy deadbolt into place. It felt like a futile gesture, like trying to hold back the tide with a screen door. He paced the living room, the darkness of the house matching the deepening gloom outside. He did not dare turn on the lights. He did not want to be a silhouette in an illuminated box. A knock at the door sounded like a gunshot. Tyler jumped, backing away until his spine hit the cold plaster of the hallway wall. He held his breath. Tyler! A voice. Familiar. Not Daniels. Tyler, it's Frank. Frank Morrison. His landlord. The elderly man who lived in Williamsport. The man who had seemed so grateful to find a tenant. Tyler hesitated. Frank was not police. Frank was just an old man. Maybe he could help. Maybe he had a car. Tyler moved to the door and peered through the peephole. Frank stood on the porch, wrapped in a thick wool coat, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee from the gas station. He looked harmless, concerned. Tyler unlocked the door but kept the chain on. "What do you want, Frank?" "I heard you had some trouble with the plumbing," Frank said, his voice mild. "Thought I'd drive up and check on the pipes. Brought you some coffee. You look like you need it." "I did not call about plumbing," Tyler said, gripping the doorframe. Frank sighed, a puff of white mist escaping his lips. "Open the door, son. We need to talk. Not about pipes." Something in Frank's tone, a resignation, a heaviness, made Tyler undo the chain. If they wanted him dead, they could have done it in the woods. They could have done it when he walked in the door. This was something else. Frank stepped inside, kicking the snow off his boots. He handed Tyler one of the cups. "Black, the way you drink it." Tyler took the cup. It was warm. "How do you know how I drink my coffee?" "We've never had coffee." Frank did not answer. He walked into the living room, stepping over the scattered papers and the overturned chair without a flicker of surprise. He righted the chair and sat down heavily, keeping his coat on. "You found the clearing," Frank stated. It was not a question. "I found a cabin," Tyler corrected, remaining standing, "with a wallet belonging to David Torres." Frank nodded slowly. "David?" "Yes." He was a stubborn man, too, always asking why the lumber mill closed the north sector. Could not let things lie. Tyler felt the room spin. "You know about it. You know about the cabin." "We all know, Tyler," Frank said, looking up. His eyes were watery and tired. "The chief, the librarian, the grocer. Me. You protecting a killer," Tyler spat. 17 people, Frank. "Kids. Tourists." "Not a killer," Frank corrected gently. "A necessity." "Necessity? Is that what you call murder?" Frank took a sip of his coffee. "This town, Emporium, it dies, Tyler. It dies every winter. No industry, no money. Young people leave. But 40 years ago we made an arrangement. There are people, groups outside of this county. Powerful people who need privacy. They need places that do not exist on maps. Places to store things. Places to resolve problems." Tyler stared at him, the horror of the implications sinking in. "You rent out the woods? To criminals?" "We provide isolation," Frank said. "We ensure that no one looks too closely at the logging roads. We ensure that when someone from the city comes up here to bury a problem, they are not disturbed. And in exchange, the town survives. The grid stays on. The roads get paved. The hospital in St. Mary's gets a new wing. And the missing people?" Tyler asked, his voice trembling. "Collateral?" Frank said, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "Sometimes people wander where they should not. Sometimes they see things, like you did." David Torres saw a drop-off. He would not keep quiet. "So the tenants handled it. We clean up the mess." "You monsters," Tyler whispered. "We are survivors," Frank said. He reached into his coat pocket. Tyler tensed, ready to run. But Frank pulled out an envelope. It was thick. "This is your security deposit, plus the remaining months of your lease, and a little extra for the inconvenience." Frank placed the envelope on the desk, right next to the empty space where the laptop had been. "You a good tenant, Tyler. Quiet. We liked you. That S.Y. Daniels did not arrest you for trespassing. That S.Y. you standing here talking to me instead of being elsewhere. You think you can buy me off?" "I am not buying you off," Frank said, standing up. "I am buying your life. You have a choice, Tyler. You can be the hero. You can try to run to the FBI with no evidence, no photos, just the ravings of a man who had a breakdown in the woods. And if you do that, you will never reach the highway. The tenants are very protective of their privacy." Frank moved to the door. "Or you can take Frank's car. My old Buick is parked around the block. Keys are in the envelope and you can drive away. Go back to Philadelphia. Forget the name Emporium. Write your technical manuals. Live to be an old man." Frank opened the door. The cold night air rushed in. "Leave tonight, Tyler. If you re-hear when the sun comes up, you re-part of the history. The door clicked shut. Tyler stared at the envelope on the desk. It sat there like a tombstone. For a moment, a surge of righteous fury burned through him. He imagined grabbing the keys, driving not to Philadelphia, but to the state capitol. He imagined screaming the truth until someone listened. He imagined leading a cavalcade of SWAT teams back to that clearing, tearing up the earth until they found the bones he knew were there. But then he looked at the slashed clothes on the floor. He remembered the speed of the cleanup in the woods. He thought of Daniel's smile. They were not afraid of him. That was the most terrifying realization. They were not scrambling to cover up a mistake. They were following a protocol. The system was efficient. It had worked for 40 years. David Torres had tried to fight it. Marcus Hicks had probably tried to run from it. They were gone. Tyler walked to the desk. His hand hovered over the envelope. He was not a detective. He was not a soldier. He was a technical writer who moved here for cheap rent. He realized, with a crushing clarity, that the suspense thriller he thought he was living in did not have a hero. It only had victims and survivors. And the only difference between the two was silence. He grabbed the envelope. It was heavy with cash. He did not count it. He found the car keys inside. A heavy, brass set for an old GM car. He did not pack the rest of his clothes. He did not try to salvage his papers. He walked out of the house with nothing but the clothes on his back and the envelope in his pocket. The Buick was parked around the corner, just as Frank had said. It was an ancient, boat-like sedan, rusting at the wheel wells. Tyler got in. The engine roared to life with a smoky cough. He did not turn on the headlights until he was on the main road. He drove slowly, strictly obeying the speed limit. Every pair of headlights in the rearview mirror made his heart stop. He watched the odometer tick upward. 5 miles. 10 miles. The Welcome to Emporium sign flashed past in the reverse red glow of his taillights. He expected a roadblock. He expected a black SUV to ram him off the road. But the road remained empty. They were letting him go. Because they knew. They knew that the terror of knowing was a better muzzle than death. If he spoke, he sounded crazy. If he returned, he disappeared. Tyler drove for 4 hours without stopping, crossing the county line, then the state line. Only when he saw the lights of the Philadelphia skyline did he pull over into a rest stop. He killed the engine. The silence of the car was deafening. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles aching. He was alive. He had won the game by refusing to play it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope. He tossed it onto the passenger seat. Then he reached into his other pocket. His fingers closed around the small, dirty pine cone with the blue nylon cord. He had not left it behind. He held it up to the dashboard lights. It was a piece of trash. A nothing. But as he looked at the knot, a complex, double fisherman's knot, something a hunter or a camper would use, he felt a cold resolve settle in his stomach, replacing the fear. He could not fight them with the law. The law stopped at the county line. But he was a technical writer. He knew how to document. He knew how to archive. And he knew that the internet was a forest far denser than the Pennsylvania wilds. He would not go to the police. He would not go to the papers. He would go to the forums, the dark web, the conspiracy boards. He would upload every memory, every date, every name he remembered from the archives before they were scrubbed. He would not tell a story. He would release a dataset. Tyler started the car. He merged back onto the highway, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. He would never go back to Emporium, but he would make sure that for the rest of its existence, the town would never ever be quiet again.